Hey guys, Bryson with PRD Design here, and wanted to give you guys a look at our new Godzilla-Highboy mount kit. So if you've been thinking about Godzilla swapping your Highboy, we're making an engine and transmission mount system that will allow it to just be a bolt-in process for you to be able to get that Godzilla into your Highboy without any cab modifications or having to cut up your firewall or anything like that. And it's going to get it placed right in the right location to be lined up with your divorce transfer case. And get it in an optimal position for the most room in the truck and in the chassis. So what we have here is everything that's going to be included in our kit. You have your bolt-in engine mounts that bolt right to the block with the bushings, the frame mount for the engine mounts, and then you have the all the hardware that's necessary to go with it. You have a new mid crossmember. So this mid crossmember needs to be replaced in these Highboy frames. So the factory crossmember is about 3 inches further back, and due to the shape of it, it does not clear the transmission, which is what typically it's going to be the 10R 140 or the 6R 140 transmission. It doesn't clear that, so we made this new crossmember that's made out of 2x4 mandrel bent square tubing or rectangle tubing that is a 3/16 thick wall, and we have these mandrel bent, like I said, to be able to provide good strength across here. All the plate work is all 3/16 plate, and then it's all welded up. All grade A hardware in here. So once you get this crossmember taken out, your original one, this crossmember here bolts right up to factory holes. So there's no new holes to drill for this crossmember. You do have to grind all of the hot rivets out of your cab mount and remove the cab mount as well as that center crossmember, and then all the new holes here all line up with the factory holes for the cab mount. So you'll get these new side brackets in place, and then on the inside of the frame, and then you'll locate the cab mount on the outside and bolt everything together and get it all torqued down from there. The transmission crossmember here uses 2 side mounts that you'll have to locate inside the frame, and you will have to drill 4 new holes per side to bolt these side mounts in there. And then once that's done, there's a bushing here on the side with a through bolt. And then the crossmember bolts right to the back of your transmission. So it's a pretty simple solution to be able to bolt it right in with very little modification. Like I said, no floor modifications at all. Aside from removing the cab mount and bolting this in place and then having to drill those holes, there's no welding required or any major modifications in that way. So it's going to get it lined up, like I said, with your transfer case, get it set up in there to give you the maximum amount of room to your firewall, and make sure you have plenty of room to the front crossmember and your radiator, fan, all that stuff. So now we're going to give you guys a look at what it's like to put it in the frame. So again, if you've been looking to Highboy swap or Godzilla swap your Highboy, this is going to be a great kit for you to be able to do so with all the hard work as far as the engine placement is already determined and set up for you. So we'll give you guys a look at it in the frame. So we're going to show you guys how to bolt in the motor mounts here. It's the easiest part of the job. So we have these inside frame plates, which on your Highboy, there's basically 8 factory holes that are right here on the inside of the frame where the factory motor mounts bolt to, and that's where we made these bolt to. So but these go to the back 4, so the back 4 that are behind the big hole in the frame, and then also is incorporated with where the shock mount goes. So the hardware that goes in here is a 7/16 grade A bolt. 2 are 4.5 inches and 2 are 5 inches. And the longer ones are to make up for the extra room for the shock mount. So we're going to go ahead and pop these longer bolts through the shock mount here. And then we'll get those through the frame. And then line up the holes on the inside, and then you got washers and nuts, nylock nuts to go with them. And the torque on these when we get them in here is going to be 50 foot-pounds, and definitely need to torque them to make sure that they are fully tight and seated. And that's it. So then from there, when the engine gets set in, which we get these bolted to the block first, once both sides are done, then the motor can get set in. And this side basically sits like this. And there's just one single nut that will go on the bottom. The holes in here are slotted. That way you have just a little bit of side-to-side adjustment if needed, but it should allow, no matter what's going on with different frames, there should be plenty of room to be able to get these located and bolted in. All right, so we're going to show you guys how to install the mid crossmember here. Obviously with the frame here, it's all powder coated. We're putting it together, so we've removed the factory crossmember that would go here, and the cab mounts have been removed. And again, most of these cab mounts are held on with hot rivets, so you have to grind the hot rivets off and punch them out to be able to expose the holes in the frame and all that. Once you do that, in our bracket here, it's already got welded in nuts in here, so it makes installation easy, so you don't have to try to hold and put nuts on and all that. So the way we built it is that the top holes here are all factory holes in the frame, and these holes are in, as far as we've been able to see, every single bump side frame, whether it's two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. And then you have the 4 holes here where the cab mount attached to the outside, so you have 4 holes on the inside plate. And the way to put this in is to get the very front one on the top in first, or the very rear one, but either way you're doing the very front and the very rear bolts, and that just is going to hold this up in place, and it's going to leave all of the factory cab mount holes exposed, so that way you can hold the cab mount back here, drop the 2 bolts in the top, and that'll hold the cab mount in place there. So get those just loosely threaded in, and then you have 4 more that'll go in from the outside and thread into the new plate that's in there. So once these are in, then you'll just do the same thing to the other side. So I just like to get everything in there, just kind of hand snug. And then, so yeah, we'll grab this other bracket and we'll show you how they go in from the outside of the frame. Again, front hole. The front holes on these, on this frame in particular, there's 2 square holes on both sides of the frame. Well, this is where the factory 4-speed clutch Z-bar bracket goes to. So this rear hole is the rear mount for that Z-bar bracket that would bolt here if you were still running an FE with the 4-speed and for the clutch. But all the other frames still have those locations in there. I've seen some dent side frames that it's just a round hole, but they're still in these locations. So again, we're just using that front one there to locate it. And then the other holes, this very rear hole, and then the 2 top mount holes here are where where that cab mount goes. The rear one and this far rear one are where the factory crossmember would have attached to come down through. So again, it's all factory holes, which makes it nice. No extra drilling or welding for these cab mounts and this mid crossmember. So we'll get these top bolts in here. Get them kind of hand snug. Put the outside bolts in. And then we recommend tightening all of these to 30 foot-pounds. So these are all 3/8 grade 8 hardware, and you can torque them to 30 foot-pounds. Make sure everything's evenly tightened and set in there, ready to go. So yeah, so we got those on there. Again, just trying to hand tighten things. You want to make sure that the bolts are holding the bracket all the way up against the top flange of the frame, and then also all the way up against the inside there. So, and then at that point, we can hold up the mid crossmember, which again, this is made out of 2x4 rectangle tubing that is 3/16 wall thickness, mandrel bent, so it's super stout. And then just have to hold that in place there. And there's a little bit of slot in these holes to be able to make it to where, you know, if you need some side-to-side movement adjustment there, you can get those lined up and located. So get these going, and that'll hold that in place. And there's 2 holes per side on the top, and then 1 on the front and 1 on the back. So there's 4 bolts per side that hold this crossmember in, and it's all welded. They're all welded nuts inside of the tube. That way you don't have to worry about trying to hold a wrench or anything like that. Again, everything's just easily threads right in. Sometimes it does help to drop in our bolt. You can put a little extra snug on these outside plates to make sure that the inside frame plates here are all the way seated against the frame rail. And then when you're tightening these, you got to make sure that the top 2 here are snug first, because that holds the crossover all the way up against the bottom of the plate here. And then once you do that, then the side bolts can be tightened and torqued as well. Grab this 1 bolt I dropped. And then these can all be torqued in place. And at this point, that's your new crossmember. That gives you all the room you need to clear. And this right here goes right underneath the bell housing of the 10R140 or 6R140 transmission. At that point, you're running for this Godzilla setup. All right, so we've got the engine set over the frame here, and we bolted on the new engine mounts here with the new bushings on them, got those all tightened, and we torqued the bolts to the block to 45 foot-pounds. And so now we're gonna drop it down in the motor mounts, and the holes in the bushing are slotted front to back, and then the hole in the motor mounts themselves are slotted side to side. So there's plenty of adjustment to really get it dialed in and tuned in there if needed. But we should be able to just set it straight down on the mounts here. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so we got the engine set down in the frame, and now when you go to install the transmission crossmember, you have the 3 parts here, the main crossmember and then the 2 side plates. The easiest way, once you're at this point and you get the motor in and you're gonna mock it up, is to get the side plates in the frame. You can either clamp them in to get them held in there temporarily, or whatever works best that way for you. If you clamp them in, then you can get the main crossmember set in and get your bolt slid in there. So actually we're gonna start with this side and slide the bolt through. I'm just gonna leave it loose. And then I'm gonna grab the other side plate and we'll go up in there with it. So we'll put the side plate up inside the frame, and then you gotta get the other side up in there kind of at the same time, and then slide the crossmember up inside the tabs, and then you'll grab your other bolt. I'm just getting these in there temporarily at the moment. These can be taken back out and removed, but it's got to go your way. Push that plate all the way up against the inside. So once that's in there, it can't really go too far, but get it located underneath the holes in the tail shaft housing of the transmission, and then we include the bolts that'll go up into the transmission itself. And then what you want to do is just kind of get the bolt started. That way the transmission is located to the crossmember. And then the biggest thing is just making sure that the crossmember is going to be square in the frame. So you want to pull some measurements from some like locations, whether it's your transfer case crossmember or wherever on the frame that you can pull similar points to make sure that the crossmember is square in the frame, just so it looks proper that way. And then you'll get it is easiest. The brackets are made to fit right up against the bottom side of the top flange of the frame rail, and then up against the outside. So then from there, once you get it clamped and held in place, what you want to do is we're going to include a punch that is made to fit right inside the threaded holes. They're, you know, the little weld nuts that are on the bracket. And once you get that clamped in place, everything's held in and located where you need it to, you can put the punch inside the threaded portion there and punch it, and it'll mark the inside of the frame. Then you'll have to take the crossmember back out, so you can drill the frame from the inside out, which you can pilot drill it and then drill from the outside. That way you're working easier from the outside of the frame. But once you do that, then it's just a matter of getting those holes drilled out. That's a 3/8 coarse thread nut that's in there, so you just need to drill your holes out to just barely over 3/8 so you can get those in there. And then once that's in place, then you just have your 3/8 grade 8 hardware that's included with the kit. You got your holes in there, and you get these bolts started on each side. I'm gonna start these over there. And then again, with the 3/8 coarse thread grade 8 bolt, we'll torque these to 30 foot-pounds to the frame rail, and they'll be good to go there. So, and then the bushings for the transmission crossmember, there's one on each side, and there's just a long through bolt there. It is a 7/16 bolt, so you could put those in there and torque them to 40 foot-pounds, because you don't want to go too far, because the There is a sleeve in the bushing, so it won't compress too far, but you want to leave enough room to where it's not really just putting a ton of pressure inside on those bushings. And then, yeah, once you get to that point, then the last thing we have to do is just let the weight off of the lift to set the transmission down. And then we'll tighten up these bushing bolts and the install is complete. All right, so along with the Godzilla swap motor mounts, we've also worked on what it means to connect the 10R140 to the divorce transfer case for the guys that want to just put this motor in and not have to change anything drivetrain wise from the transfer case back. So obviously these transmissions are huge. They're extremely long. I don't remember the exact measurement. So your drive shaft in between the transmission and transfer case ends up being very short. But I've talked with my driveline guys and all that, and they said it's not an issue, mainly because the transfer case it's not a moving part like your differential is. So that ends up being about a 6-inch center line on the drive shaft, which is pretty short, and it could potentially make it challenging to get the drive shaft in place once you go to do that. But we're working on drive shafts right now to figure out exactly what those details are to be able to put out there for you guys. Another option that we have here, this right here is our prototype. This is our new transfer case shifter for the divorce transfer case. It allows you to use your stock shifter rod to the transfer case, and it also locates the shifter right in the factory hole location in the floor. So there's no modification to do there. This bolts right onto the side. This is the 10R140. Like I said, we are working on another version that's going to fit the 6R140. The 6R140 has a few different mounting bosses on the side of the transmission back here, so the back of it will look a little different, but we will have that option. But yeah, so this is going to allow you to have all your gears in your transfer case and be able to shift it with ease. So that's going to be an option that we have coming. We'll get that listed on the website here as soon as we can. So moving forward, once your engine's in place, there's going to be a few things that are challenges. So obviously you're putting a motor that was intended for a Super Duty into an old Ford truck. So we tried to tackle as many challenges as we can all at once, while not having to really cut up the bodies and mutilate the truck in order to get it done. So we opted, especially on this one, to run Holley makes a new serpentine system. This one is their all black serpentine system, came with the oil pan, which shortens up the oil pan, gets rid of the oil cooler that hangs out on the driver's side. And that is important because with that oil cooler on the driver's side, it does start to get close to your differential. And especially if you were going to run a high pinion, it's going to, interrupt, that clearance there with, getting that pinion up in there. And also, this kit with the crossmember is made to fit with a factory low pinion style differential. We have not tested it at all with a high pinion, so we can't really say as far as the fitment there goes on that. So the Holley system takes care of multiple issues all at once. So in order to set the engine in a place where we didn't have to cut up the cab, we wanted to get the engine as low as possible and also make sure it's in line, for the transfer case and all that. So the Holley system allowed the alternator, and it does have a power steering option that would normally go here, but we run electric power steering on pretty much every single one of these trucks, so we weren't running the hydraulic stuff. If you want to run hydraulic power steering, the factory Ford hydraulic power steering is mounted really low and it interferes with the crossmember here. Also, factory air conditioning compressor is in the same thing. It mounts really low and interferes with the crossmember on this side. So the Holley kit mounts the AC up high here, your power steering over here, and the alternator here. Everything clears the factory crossmember, no problem. Again, we're putting an engine in something that wasn't intended for, and so we can only accommodate so many challenges at once. And we figured parts that are easy to bolt on swap is better than having to cut up your cab and cut up your chassis. So the last issue that we know we've been getting questions about is exhaust clearance. So, You could use a factory Super Duty manifold on the driver's side. It does kick the exhaust out at kind of a weird angle, but it could be made to work. The passenger side could be made to work as well, but it comes out and it turns down right on this side. Well, the engine placement is based as much as we could on the same offset as a factory like FE motor. So it's set to the passenger side in order to maintain floor clearance to the transmission, allow room for the divorce transfer case shifter and all that. So the exhaust pipe on this side, because of all that, is close to the frame. It could be made to work with an experienced exhaust person that could make a clamp over here, in that system and have a pipe that was to bend out and come around. This is a piece of 2.5-inch pipe. And if you put it up to the bottom of that, it's right up against the frame on this side. But again, if you were able to put a little turnout on it, you could easily clear the crossmember on this side and then be able to run it back. And the reason we kicked up the rear crossmember so high in the frame was specifically for exhaust clearance on this side and also to maintain drive shaft clearance on the other side, so you can get the pipe out that way. So a factory manifold could be made to work. You may, whoever if it's you or your installer, you may want to possibly trim up the edge of this bracket a little bit or something to buy yourself a little more clearance. Obviously, we don't want you to cut them up because they're built for a purpose, for strength. But again, an experienced exhaust person, a good fabricator could build an exhaust that would turn out of here. We are not running this manifold on this truck. This truck got a custom set of headers that we built here in the shop specifically for this truck and to fit everything we wanted. And so it comes back a little further and we don't have the frame issues. So those are some of the challenges. This basically completes the Godzilla install as far as the bracketry and the mounting and some of the other challenges that we're pointing out here that can help get and hopefully make the process for you guys a little bit easier that way. So thanks for checking out our motor mount kit. And if you got any more questions, feel free to call the shop or visit our website.